Well, greetings, everybody. Welcome once again to the Rec Poker Podcast. I'm your host, Steve Fredland, and as always, joined by our illustrious panel. Today, we've got John Somsky, Rob Washam, Jim Reed, Andrew Feist, and the great Chris Jones. Thanks to our official sponsor, Running Aces Racetrack Casino and Hotel, and our other podcast sponsors, Learn Pro Poker and website AMP. This is episode 180. Holy cow. And today, we don't have a guest. We're trying to build these in once in a while where we don't have a guest because we just love talking shop between the panel. So we're going to do a bit of that today. I think you're going to really enjoy the conversation. Before we get into that, just a reminder, go to rec.poker/resources. It's your one-stop shop for all of our partnerships, all of the additional discounts you get by signing up through Rec Poker. We've got Learn Pro Poker and Solve for Why, who are now working together on some things. Elliott Rowe, Red Chip Poker, Range Trainer Pro, PokerCoaching.com, Poker Code. We've got ACR, Poker Tracker 4, Hold'em Manager, D&B Poker, and HelloFresh. Those are the partnerships that we have right now. So pretty much anything you need, poker-related and even food-related, you can go out there, check it out. We've got some discounts for going through our site. So make sure you check that out. Specifically, one thing, make sure you check out Red Chip Poker. You can get a 1 week free of Core, which is kind of their Core membership site from Red Chip Poker. If you go to redchippoker/recpoker, use the code RECPOKER. So with that, let's come on in, guys. What do we want to talk about today, Chris? I know you've always got these amazing ideas. I don't know how you do it. Hey, Chris, you got a good hand? Yes, here's an amazing hand. Yeah, you got a topic? Yes, here's an amazing topic. So we turn to you once again to kind of lead us through this one today.
Sure. I mean, this has been something, we're all still, mostly in quarantine. There's a little bit of opening up. Some people are having giant pool parties around the country, but there's mostly we're still playing online. And one of the things that I've been noticing in my shifting more and more online is that I feel like the online atmosphere world has a lot more sort of overactive shove stacks, especially with these longer rebuy tournaments where people are just sort of like trying to build stacks or rebuy again. And so I've been really struggling, and I wanted to have the conversation of like, when you're in this space and somebody is, say, willing to shove over your 2 big blind open, like a 40 big blind stack, and they're willing to repeatedly do it. And there's maybe not just even one person at the table, but there's multiple people at the table who are shoving these 20, 30, 40 big blind stacks repeatedly. And then sometimes they're getting called down, and you're seeing that they're doing it with, queen 3 of diamonds or something, right? And so I'm really struggling. I think I've been overfolding in these moments, but I'm also really struggling as to how to approach it. Do I need to be opening less? Do I need to be opening bigger? Do I need to be calling wider? Do I need to be hoping that somebody else sort of knocks this person out and then we can return to normal play? Do I, how wide do I start calling off if I'm calling? All these kind of questions are swirling in my mind, and I'm wondering how other people are either, if you're noticing this, is this just sort of unique to me? People are picking on me, or is this something that's sort of part of the online game that maybe we don't see as much in the live world? And then if so, how do we adjust to this?
Well, I'll just ask a question first, because there's others of you that play more online. But when you say they're doing it repeatedly, is it like literally they're doing it every hand, or is it like once in orbit, or like how frequent are we talking about generally?
I would say, the players that I'm thinking about are doing this at least once in orbit. It's not like every hand. I mean, they're still willing to fold total garbage, but they're certainly like they're there to gamble. They want. They're like, well, I'm going to buy in. There's 2 levels left in this one that had like maybe 40 levels, right? I'm going to buy in, and I get in at 15 big blinds. Sometimes more, up to like 40 big blinds, right? And I'm going to get this stack, I'm going to spin it up, or I'm going to buy again. I mean, that seems to be what I think the strategy is, because when they do get called down, that's some of the hands that I'm seeing.
So I'll just ask one more question, then I'll let the experts get in here, but is your reluctance to call primarily, I mean, it sounds like what you're thinking, your mindset is, I'm probably ahead of their range with my ace 10 or my king queen, but is your reluctance to call because you just don't know if you have enough equity advantage to make it worth the risk? Is that the
Yeah, I mean,
resistance?
and that's
Yeah.
sometimes it's in these situations where I've been grinding for hours and I've built
Mm-hmm.
up a decent stack, and do I really want to blow half of it on a pretty marginal call where they could be whatever? But also, if this keep, like, I've just been noticing that, like, people don't really, well, they do. Like, there are players who do this, but that just three bet sort of normally. But
Mm-hmm.
there is certainly a segment, in at least on ACR, where I've been playing the majority of my online games, that basically sees an open as an invitation to shove. And in a situation where I think, there are reshove stacks, but I think the thing
Yeah.
I've been noticing is people are doing it with even bigger stacks. Um, and I don't know how to adjust to it.
So I guess maybe the first question for the panel is, are you guys noticing the same thing? Either you guys that are playing more online now or that have been doing it all along? Is this pretty common for everybody to face this, Rob?
I've seen it. It depends on the level or the stage of the tournament. You see it right away at the beginning, and then you see it right towards the end of the rebuy period. There's this gap where it's pretty standard play. But right at the beginning, you'll see a lot of people come in and they want to try to double up or rebuy real quick. And then that kind of stops for a while. And then you have some regular play, you go along, and then you get to the last 2 or 3 levels, and all of a sudden you see this fresh stack show up.
Mm-hmm.
And he's going to be in there just trying to double up. And all of a sudden a new fresh stack shows up, and then he's just sitting there trying to double up. So I just play normal. If I open, if I'm the original opener, and I get 3-bet, if I have the type of hand that I can call, or if I have a hand that I can call a 3-bet with, I'll go ahead and call it off. If I don't, I'll just fold. So I don't try to guesstimate that, hey, they're really, really light here. I can call really, really light. I'm just still going to call with the same hands I would call with under normal situations.
So, and you, regardless of sizing, so if they're 3-betting to a normal size or 3-betting to a massive stack, if you feel like you've got a hand that could call a normal 3-bet, you're going to call off one of these shove stacks.
It depends on my stack size at the time too, right?
Right.
But yeah, I don't try to call lighter just because I know a lot of them are shoving lighter.
Mm-hmm.
John, what do you think?
Well, my first reaction would be, if people are shoving light like that, my first adjustment would be to tighten up just a little bit. So I'm not going to open as often. I'm not going to be putting marginal bets to open a pot in quite as often. However, when I do get called, I do think I don't think I'd quite do what Rob says and just call with my normal stuff. I would try to evaluate how loose the range is. I wouldn't be calling with Queen 9 suited or anything like that. But I might be calling with an Ace 9 suited, where normally that would be a fold. Or, I might go down to Ace 10 in a situation where normally I'd only be calling with Ace Queen or Ace Jack. So I would try to see if I'm ahead of their range. And unfortunately, you just have to kind of grab. It's like riding a roller coaster. You just got to hold on and pray, and there's not much you can do. It's the ride you're given. But that's the way. If you do that consistently over time, you should be one of those people building a big stack. And then if people are still shoving like that, you should be able to withstand a loss or two occasionally in your tournaments. And, it only takes 1 or 2 wins to overcome quite a few losses in those size of fields.
Yeah, for sure.
So, John, when you're thinking about that, John, do you kind of have like ranges already in your head, kind of default ranges? Like if I open and somebody shoves 30 big blinds, I'm typically going to call off with whatever it is, say tens or higher, an ace queen or higher, whatever your default range might be. Do you have that? And then is it a logical process of saying, okay, he's wider, so I'm going to expand this to sixes and better, and king, queen, and ace 10 or better? I mean, is it logical like that, or how do you say when I'm going to widen my range a little bit? What does that actually look like practically?
I think that is what I would like it to be, what you said. Whether or not it is that, or whether it's just like, it kind of feels like a call right here. I don't know for sure. But I mean, I do kind of have ranges that I think I'm going to call with. I go a lot by just the flow and how I perceive people are playing, which is sometimes good and sometimes bad, because sometimes I can be way off. But that's what I would do, and then just try to keep going with what's happening. I mean, the same thing happens in, our home games. When you find someone who is aggressive, you can't let that aggression work for them. So the only way I've found to do that is to tighten up a little bit, so that I have things worth defending with. Mm-hmm. And then just trying to defend a little bit wider, still plenty ahead of their range, so I'm still getting my money in good on average, but I'm not giving them as much room to do all of the stealing.
What does anyone think of in this situation? Let's say we've got a couple people at this table who we've noticed have just joined and have maybe shoved 3 hands in the past 10 or something. Like they're really active. What do you think of open limping in this kind of right before a rebuy, not like as a permanent strategy, but in like those couple levels for the rebuy period? We've got these people who are kind of going to maniacally jam, and if they maniacally jam, we've lost less with a limp. And if maybe they aren't as threatened by a limp, and maybe they call along. Maybe is that a possible adjustment, or am I just shooting myself in the foot with that idea?
I think you're shooting yourself in the foot.
Yeah. Okay.
Maybe if you want to try to trap them by limping aces or kings or something like that, but for the most part, just play your normal game. Just play your normal game, because they're not gonna jam every single time. and when you go around the table, how many times do you have the opportunity to open? How many hands are you actually getting that you can open? And if you're only getting 1 or 2 around, right, you're going to limp those times that you have an opportunity to open the pot with a hand that's worth opening for a raise, so that you could be the aggressor. On the off chance that this is the one time that guy is going to jam over you, no, I don't see it. I don't see it. I think you just play your normal game, and then you deal with that jam if it happens. At least that's what I've been doing. Now, it's not like I'm binking every single tournament I'm in either, but But I think you still need to play your regular game, and you just have to evaluate if you're strong enough to call off what could be a very light shove.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that too, but it's in some parts of the tournament, I guess, depending on where you are, it might not be a bad idea just to develop a limping range, but it completely depends on what kind of hand you have. If you have the 5 6s or 6s or less kind of thing in a late position where he's going to jam if he's on the big blind, maybe you can try and jam and see a cheaper flop, because then if you don't show aggression, maybe they won't show aggression. But I mean, this last week, actually, the tournament that I played in, I had a guy that was doing this same thing, 30, 40, 50, 60, even 70 big blinds real early. He was just jamming anything, but it turned out it wasn't anything. I found out. I saw 3 separate instances, and actually I was final table heads up with this guy, where he was 3-bet jamming any pair. And when he did it the second time, I actually went back in my hand history and looked to make sure it was the same guy. And he did it with 2s, he did it with 3s, and he did it with aces. So that right there tells me he'll do it with any pair, because that's pretty broad spectrum of where he's going to go. Now, that's not everybody, but and actually that's how I won the tournament, because I folded pocket fours heads up. I opened, he jammed. I'm like, oh, what could this be? And then I ended up binking that one. That was my small bink of the week. Self-break, sorry. But so, I mean, developing a limping strategy, I feel like could sometimes be beneficial, because if you don't show aggression and he can see a cheap flop, he might not, or whoever she might not fire back, and you might be able to see it, but it completely depends on the hand. And, you know, and like we've been learning with like tournament structures and the anatomy of tournaments, where are you willing to accept more variance?
Mm-hmm.
You know, because there's certain spots in tournaments, like we talked about, that it's not worth it. You know, but if you're in those middling stages, you know, where you're getting close to the bubble, or not close to the bubble, but, you know, 100 people or 50 people or an hour away from the bubble, it might be worth it to try and double up a stack. So it just kind of depends on the spots.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I think like some of the other variables that I'd want to be considering here are the relative position at the table. Like when they're shoving a lot, are they doing it when they're in late position? And am I in early position relative to them? Because that would make me more inclined to employ an exploitative limping strategy just for the spot, where I can limp from early position with basically the same opening range that I would use strictly to combat this aggression. But if they're going to be, you know, if the I don't want to be open limping from late position, because I think Rob makes a good point that you're just giving up too much fold equity as part of your overall strategy. So I'd factor that in. And the only other thing I think about when it really is a question of how light do you call down? Because I think, Chris, you're right that you should probably be trimming away some of those opening hands that you're not going to be able to call with anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So just like save yourself, especially in early position, just cut them out, or middle position. And then the only other thing that I would say is if he's showing down like Queen 3 suited, that's different than if he's showing down like 7-5 suited. Neither one is good hands, but I'm going to be more comfortable calling down against a player that shows over a 40 big blind 3-bet shove with 7-5 suited, because you're just, even your 2 big card hands are going to be way ahead of that range relatively. So, and really, if he's doing that a lot, that's a real opportunity. Like, you should be loving life when you get to the table and guys are shoving, 5-7 or queen 3. But yeah, stacks in position, I think, would be a big part of it.
Sort of, but then okay, we see, because I have seen people do that. I've seen people do it with 7-5 suited, 5-6 suited, and then like they call and get there or whatever. But so you're sitting there with your ace deuce of diamonds here in this kind of spot. Those are the hands where, like, I'm a big believer in sort of opening and having some aggression with some wheel aces, especially suited wheel aces. So this is a spot where I'm finding myself in a lot, where I can be with a 40 big blind stack in the middle, or a 30 big blind stack. I can be easily dominated by somebody who's playing pretty standard. But it's also a hand where I can also, if I think that somebody's being really light, it's a really good hand to potentially call down with. And these are the spots I'm finding myself in a lot. And I guess it's really hard for me to pull the trigger on a 30 plus big blind call with like ace deuce of spades. But yeah, I'm wondering if it's the right move.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be interesting to kind of run the hand analysis on that. The problem is if he's shoving any ace and he's shoving any pair, you're in trouble. I mean, yeah, you're ahead of the queen 3s, the king 7s. I mean, so there's probably, you probably have a decent amount of equity, but that's the question is, what's the upside? Does he have you covered? What's the upside versus the downside? You doubling up versus you going broke. What's the ICM implications at the stage of the tournament? Kind of to Andrew's point, depending on where you're at. If it's early, to me, it's just not worth the risk. Right. Like, even if I'm going to win that 55% of the time and I'm going to lose it 45% of the time, I don't know that that's worth it. I don't know that twice as many chips half the time is valuable enough to offset having 0 chips half the time. Like, I just don't know if in that situation that's the case. I kind of wanted to. Sorry, I'm going to derail. I'm going to go back to kind of the limping thing. The one point I would make about open limping, and I've been known to do it on occasion against the right players, but the reason I don't like the open limp with a fairly marginal hand that you're willing to call off on, like say you have say of ace jack or something like that, where you're saying, okay, if he shoves over the top, I'm going to call him off this time. If you limp there and then he shoves, you're opening up the door for somebody to like reshove, isolate, and then that puts you in a really awkward spot. Versus if you open, people, and then somebody reshoves, isolates, you got to give them credit for a pretty big hand there. So I think, because somebody might be saying they're watching him too, going, I want to attack this guy. So they're sitting there with their ace nine suited, and you limp, and they might think you're trapping, but generally that's a fairly weak move. Then the guy shoves his 30 bigs. Now the guy with 50 bigs says, oh, my ace nine, I'm going to isolate this guy, and I rip it in, and now you're folding the best hand. Versus if you open early position, I think at least that dissuades a little bit of that reshove activity that could happen behind. So going back to your ace two of spades, but that was the one thought I had when you were talking about the open limp.
Yeah, what happens when, like, the other thing that comes up too is maybe you've even got a marginally better hand than ace deuce of spades, but you've got a few of these people at the table, and one of them sees one of the other ones shove, and they're like, oh, great, I'm shoving. And they really can have anything, and they're willing to just gamble it up and hope to triple up or quadruple up or whatever with their 6-8 of whatever. And again, like, I mean, what are we doing with sevens when we have multiple shoves in front of us?
Well, your odds are going down as the more people that are in the pot, right?
Right.
So you're going to have even a stronger hand to call down if there's two people that have already jammed. So again, I would play your normal game, play your normal opens for your normal raises, whether it's 2.5, 3 big blinds, whatever that is. And then the hands that you would normally call a 3-bet, look to see if the odds are there, right? Are you getting that 3-1? If you're getting that 3-1 or 2-1, I should say, if you're getting that 2-1, you should be calling no matter what, right?
Right.
But then look at just like I say, just play your normal game, and you're going to come out ahead, because this guy's going to keep doing it, and it's going to work every time until the last time, and he's going to be gone. He's going to buy again. He's going to do it for a while, and then after a while, he's going to say, okay, I've pissed away enough money. I'm not doing it anymore. And then he's gone. And in the meantime, you've made some money off of him, or you've just played smart. That's it. It's easy game.
All right.
Well,
sounds good.
Yeah, I would say the one question I would have for you, and I asked the question because it's something that I struggled with early on. I think I struggled with was this idea of sort of getting upset. It's a form of tilt. It was a form of tilt for me, where you'd see somebody doing this, like, you feel like somebody's got to stop this guy. Like, we can't let this go on. And I think I would take on this feeling like it's got to, somebody's got to stop him. I've got king 9. I'm going to stop him. You know what I mean? Like, and then I would make suboptimal plays because of that sort of, I've got to police the whole table, when why do I care if he's stealing somebody else's opens? You know what I mean? Like, right. If people are raising and then he's shoving, they're not learning, and he keeps shoving over the top, it's not really my responsibility to stop them. I just need to look for opportunities to do that. So I'm just kind of wondering from your perspective, if you're feeling like, what do I do here? Because is this a nice, logical, positive EV, positive ICM play that I'm missing out on? Or is there an element of, I'm frustrated by this, and maybe, that might be skewing your decision?
For me, there's certainly an element of frustration, but it's not necessarily like I want to be the table police or the table captain sort of, and it still could be a form of tilt, but it's not that kind of tilt. It's like, I am sick of continuing to fold. You only get so many pretty decent hands, and I'm being the disciplined player who's folding my ace 10 offsuit and my pocket sevens to this continual maniac, and I'm feeling like at some point this is that I am being taken advantage of, my willingness to fold these hands, and that I need to take a stand. And that could be a form of tilt. You could be very right in saying that, but at some point it's just like, I feel like maybe I need to be more willing to go bust in these close to rebuy periods when the field seems to get a lot looser. And maybe that's, it's not necessarily like I'm like going to teach them a lesson or whatever, but it's like I am getting frustrated about continuing to fold hands that I feel like maybe are playable, and maybe that it almost feels like a mistake on my part.
I think you just kind of have to embrace the variance.
Yeah.
And, it's not that you're trying to teach them a lesson, but it is that the opportunities that are coming to you are high variance opportunities. They're still plus EV. So you just gotta, push and pray, and it's going to work out. It should, over a lifetime, work out often enough that you come out ahead if it's truly a plus EV play. It's frustrating because a lot of the time it's not going to work out and you're going to end up busting, especially if you've got to dodge several of these landmines, because it's not like it's just one player doing it.
Yeah, you're being presented with a series of opportunities to invest in spots against wide ranges. So it's a high variance spot, but it's a profitable spot in the long run. But you're going to lose a lot of tournaments.
Well, and that's
right there.
And that's the difference between cash game and tournament poker, right? Like if it's a cash game, I would say 100%. If you think you've got 51%, you should be getting it in, and if it doesn't work out, you rebuild. But we all know the value curve, the ICM utility curve of chips gained are not as valuable as chips lost. And so the question is, if you have 50% equity or whatever, in a hand in a 40 big blind shove, even if 51%, should you be getting it in there or not? I don't know from a actual tournament value perspective that that's even the right positive long-term play. So where is it? Is it 55%? Is it 60%? What's the piece that you need? And then the other thing, as we think again about what Andrew brought up about the solve for why kind of tournament stages piece, is this idea of future skill edge. Now, this is sort of a form of future skill edge, is like, do I think this is going to continue? Obviously, it sucks when that person runs into somebody else's kings. You're like, God, I knew somebody to get those chips, but could there potentially be a better shot? Like, so do you have to take that spot, or is there in this tournament setting a realistic expectation that you'll be able to find a better spot before those chips are gone? So I think that's one of my considerations. Now, I will say that I do tend to be on the low variance side early in tournaments, lower than most. But that's sort of how I rationalize that piece of just saying, okay, yep, I'm going to keep opening my hands. I'm going to tighten somewhat, like John said. I'm going to tighten somewhat so it's not as frustrating. I might not open pocket fives because then I can't be frustrated. Oh, sorry, Chris would open pocket fives, of course, 5x5. But
handed poker.
but I might tighten it up because then I'm not as frustrated. I'm more frustrated because I'm folding more, but that's less frustrating than opening and then folding to a jam. And then, just trust that when the time is there, you're going to be able to take advantage of it when you pick up jacks or whatever. So I don't know. I think that's where I would move just toward tightening up pre-flop. You're still going to have to fold some to shoves, but I think there's a lot better chance you'll be able to call off. It's frustrating.
I smile when I fold to a 3-bet. Because if I
smile when you fold to a 3-bet too, Rob.
I'm just saying, when I make a play and if I'm opening and somebody 3-bets me, I already know when I open, I already know if I'm getting 3-bet, if I'm going to fold or not. So I just smile and fold.
Love
and it's done. The decision was made when I opened.
Yeah, it's no longer an emotional decision.
Right. So it's not like, oh, geez, he's picking on me, I'm going to get him back. You can't do that.
Well, and that's the best advice you can give a lot of people is don't get sticky with hands. Just be willing to put chips in and fold because that's the right play in that spot. So
exactly.
So Chris, do you find yourself in those spots like saying, this is so frustrating, but I've got sevens in middle position. I'm going to open, but if he shoves, I'm just going to fold again. Or is it still just as, visceral of a response when you get shoved on?
I mean, like I'll be honest. This weekend, I found myself in that situation, and I took a stand, and I'll tell you, I had a massive stack, and I took a stand against these people who were doing this. Against an open, and then I opened, and then it was a shove and an over shove, and I had pocket sevens, and I called, and they both had undercards to my 7. And of course they got there, right? Which was so tilting. But yeah, so I don't know. I don't think I'm learning my lesson as much. But I fold.
Fresh.
Yeah, this is fresh. Normally I fold, but I did sort of like have a moment where I called it off this weekend.
Those moments are
especially shoving
those
and reshove.
moments
Go
are
ahead,
the
Andrew.
best. Those moments are the best when you have the best hand. My wife walks into the room. I have ace king. The guy has ace deuce. Flop comes deuce deuce.
Yeah, right,
Oh.
right.
And she goes, "Well, why can't you win those? You're not very good at winning races." Thanks, hon. I appreciate it. Thanks.
And you're agonizing over this call, and you call, and then you see that they've got 3, 4, and 5, 6, and you're like, yes.
He's like, yeah, let's go.
That's
Let's
just
go.
the extra, just the extra grind in the wound there. When she's like, "Oh, why can't you win that?" Well, I'm trying.
So do you feel like, is it when it's, I mean, I guess stages of tournaments, and are you seeing this experience like kind of what you guys are saying? Like it happened, like Rob was saying early, then it sort of happens again near the bubble or near the buy-in time or whatever. Like, are you seeing this behavior continuing like up and through the bubble, or is it just through like end of registration?
No, it's really like for me, I even noticed it less right at the beginning. It's although it is there, but I think it's a real factor in those maybe 2 or 3 levels before the rebuy ends. That's when I see it happening the most. Because you see people, these tournaments are so long, right? And I think that there is a segment of the population that just sort of like feels like, I'm not going to waste my time playing for 4 hours and then, grinding my way and then so I'm just going to pop in at the last minute and try to gamble it up and get into the real part of the tournament. I think is a potential strategy that's out there.
I think that's a legitimate strategy. Like that, right. If you can get into a tournament that with 25 or 30 big blinds, and like it's it's sort of like a less elegant game because a lot of it comes down to just shoving stacks and calling stacks and folding. Like there's not as much to it at that point. But it's not like I'm not sure it's a bad EV. I'm not sure it's a minus EV play if people know how to use a small stack. Like as we're talking about today, it can present kind of a troubling issue for people that have been patiently playing actual poker for hours. And if you can get in there and double up, now you've got 50 big blinds. You really could have been in that tournament the whole time. So. I don't think that, and I know you're not saying this, Chris, but other people that you encounter, if you encounter this in the game, some of it might be people just new to online and just getting shovey with big stacks when it's not the right time to do it. But some of them are making good shoves with 20 big blind stacks, and there's kind of an art to that as well. But the answer is still to call down with the right hands, and then, good luck if you solve that.
Yeah, I think it's a huge positive EV play for those folks coming in late when they're getting called by donkeys who are like calling them with overpairs. Like, who does that? Like, I mean, if I'm going to come in and shove with 5, 6 and somebody with 7s calls me, like I'm going to do that all day.
Thanks, Steve.
That's why you don't play that trash.
Appreciate it.
Could be that there are some people that just don't like to play post flop too, because I've actually run into a few spots where they, it's kind of marginal in that area where it's like that's a hand that could shove, I suppose, here, but might just be good as a 3-bet or a flat, a normal 3-bet, I guess. But there are a lot of spots where I've seen. I played with a guy that had a 3-bet percentage of like 35%, which is pretty high. And then he would just barrel or completely shove on the flop. He just didn't want to play post flop. So there are people that are newer to poker and that kind of thing, and that's the way they can win some chips too. Because if whoever you're in the pot with completely whiffs on the flop, they're more than likely folding.
Yep. Makes sense.
Yeah. Anything. Poker's hard. It's an interesting question for sure because I don't play a lot online. I just started a little bit with everything going on now, and that was one of the things I'm like, I don't know if I even like this because of that sort of thing. It's just such a different dynamic when guys are just ripping 70 bigs. You're like, well, what do I do here with 10s? I mean, in any other situation, if I know the player at all, it's just a fold or it's a snap call depending on the player. Now I don't know this person. I don't have all these stats on people or whatever. And like, I have no idea what to do with 10s. And it's sort of like, it's disturbing because then, they're going to do it again in another 3 or 4 hands. Okay. Now what do I do with King Jack suited? I don't know. Help, phone a friend.
Yeah, but this
and the other,
this is no different than when you first started playing poker when you didn't know anything either. Right.
So you're saying I'm right where I was when I first started?
No, what I'm saying is you start to learn the different strategies that you need to employ to
Yeah.
beat the game that you're playing, whatever that is. And so it's new and different, because if you
Yep.
always play live, people aren't doing that live very often. I mean, you might see it close to the bubble of a rebuy, right? If the rebuy period is about to
Yeah.
end, so people shove their short stack in just to see if they can get rid of it and buy in again.
Yep.
But in these, it's a little bit different dynamic. They're coming in at the end, and they're willing to throw 4 or 5 bullets, because they always come in with that fresh stack, boom, try to see if they can double up. That's just a strategy that you have to now deal with, which is different than you dealt with in a live game.
I think that's a good way to put it. It's like learning a new variant of Texas Hold'em.
Right.
Yeah. John, did you have something?
Well, I was just going to say, I think that was a really good point that Rob made, in that whenever we put ourselves in an uncomfortable position, that usually means it's a place where we have a lot to learn. And if you're really, most people get good at playing the games they play in. But when they go outside of that realm, and that can be as simple as going to a different online poker site, because one player pool might play very differently than another player pool on a different site. And if you move to a different place, you're not going to learn you're not going to know the same techniques don't work. So that's where we're all trying to get to, is understand what mistakes people are playing and understand how to react to them, so that no matter what the game we're thrown into, we can make the proper adjustments. That's a lot easier said than done. But I think that's kind of the gist of what Rob was saying there.
That's a perfect example too, because most of us are live players, and now we're being thrust into the online world. So we're seeing a lot of these tactics that we're not used to.
I feel like it's what I'm going to feel like playing something called Badoogie in June. Whatever that is, that's how I feel like playing against what Chris is describing, online big shoves.
Yeah,
Badoogie's a lot easier.
Okay.
It's a great analogy, John, too, because I do feel like that's exactly what's going on. It's a spot that I'm continually, noticing in these few weeks that I've been playing. I'm not an online expert, but it's certainly a spot that I have felt the most uncomfortable online compared to the live game. Is approaching that rebuy period. I kind of see that they have the little thing that says levels left, and it's like once it gets down to 3 or 2, I just notice my stomach start to knot up a little.
Go.
I'm like, oh boy, here we go. Hang on.
People keep popping in with starting stacks. Here we go. But those are opportunities, right? Kind of to the point that you're making too. That's you don't want to just let those opportunities go by if they are, positive opportunities, because somebody's going to capitalize, whether it's the shover or the caller. Yeah. Well, good stuff. Maybe we can wrap it up there. I know we could probably talk for hours and hours, but Chris, thanks for bringing that up, man. That was a good example. I think I love how John kind of closed it off there with thinking about this is like a new variant of something. That is kind of what it feels like. If it feels uncomfortable, it's not necessarily, doesn't necessarily mean, maybe to Rob's point, doesn't necessarily mean that they're playing bad. And maybe to Jim's point, they're not necessarily playing suboptimally. It's just that we have to now adjust to, this is different. We're not playing chess now, we're playing or checkers and chess, whatever the analogy is. So, all right, cool. Well, thanks, Chris, for bringing that up. Let's, why don't we close out that discussion? Let's do a little round robin, guys. Let's see what else is going on here in the Rec Poker hood. I know one of the folks I really wanted to talk to tonight, I know he couldn't make it, was Taylor. Last time we talked on the podcast, Taylor revealed to us his excitement of advancing through the Learn Pro Poker. I don't know how many thousands of people it was, but they're down to 8 right now, and there are 8 people playing for a $10,000 staking package. And so Taylor's going to be playing on May 30th. I believe that date is locked in now. I think originally it was going to be the 23rd. Now it's the 30th. It's going to be streamed on Twitch. And so we're going to put all the details out there for everybody. But one of the things that we've been talking about, and Chris brought up, was maybe we do a little live Zoom virtual rail for Taylor. So we're going to set that up. We don't know the details yet. We think it's a noon start, but we're not sure when that is yet either. But I think what we'll do is we'll probably set up a Zoom where maybe we jump on for a couple hours, whoever wants, just as the thing's getting started. You watch Twitch on your own, and then we'll just be on Zoom kind of hanging out and chatting. We can have breakout rooms if there's like one room that wants to talk strategy, the other one just kind of wants to hang out, whatever. We'll figure that out as we go. And then maybe we'll take a break and come back and join, later on in the day if Taylor's still going. So watch for details on that deal. But, man, it's pretty exciting. I know Taylor's fired up. I know some of you guys have been in conversations with him as he's been doing study sessions on that deal. So that's pretty cool to see him prepare for that. Andrew, did you have something there?
I did just find out, so I'm looking in the Discord for Learn Pro Poker. It is going to be May 30th, and it's 10 a.m. PST, so it's going to be noon Central
Lunar time.
Then. Yep, so it is noon for sure.
Well,
it will be streamed for Learn Pro Poker, I believe, on their Twitch channel.
All right, sweet. Thank you, Andrew, for checking that. So let's plan on that. I think it's as a default plan. Let's do like a noon to 2 virtual rail. We'll put the link out on our website, rec.poker. We'll put it out on Facebook, Twitter, all kinds of places. It's open to anybody. So you guys, whoever wants, can just jump on there. We'll do like a noon to 2 thing, and then we'll come back. We'll figure out maybe like 6 o'clock or something. We'll come back if Taylor's still going. And he's already said when he's done, he'll jump into the Zoom meeting and talk about any hands or anything else. So whether he wins or loses, he'll come on there. And if we have any spots, we can kind of make a note of when they were, and he can go back in his hand history and look at those and that sort of thing. So it should be a pretty fun day. So take advantage of that. Another opportunity to build community while we root on one of our own. With that, let's turn it over to John. What do you got cooking?
Well, first thing I have to unmute, of course.
Yes.
And we've got our home game, of course, where June 3rd is going to be the No Limit Hold'em game. June 10th is going to be Mixed Badoogie, and there is a training video available now. If you go to the our poker/home game site, you'll be able to see a training video. It's really pretty easy, so don't worry about it. It's a fun game. Then
Hey, John. Sorry, yeah. I know you. I always interrupt you, but we did remember we had a comment on Twitter. Somebody asked a question. It was like one acronym or another acronym, and you said triple draw. Do you want to just if there's versions you want to clarify?
Yeah, Badoogie I've never actually heard of being played single draw, but like Deuce to 7, you can play 2 different variants. You either play no limit single draw, or you play triple draw that's limit. Badoogie is played limit. It's played triple draw. I've also played a half pot limit game, but I've never actually played a full no limit game of Badoogie. But anyway, What we're going to be playing is triple draw, and will be on June 10th. And of course, our social distancing series is going to continue in June. So it's not going to end at the end of May. We'll keep on having games every night in June. And then for May here, we have May 18th, Spot Conlon, Daniel Kennedy won. On May 19th, Illy Chippies, Jill Burke won. On May 20th, Jasper Jr., Patrick Barry won. On May 21st, M. Babker, Michael Babker won. On May 22nd, Oreo Milk 4444, Owen Drebeck won. On May 23rd, Eric Molina, Rob Brereton won. And on May 24th, Schneids 55, Danny Schneider won.
Nice. And last night until we were playing, and there was like 4 of us, we made a pact to short stacks. Me and Danny and like 2 other folks, we were like, short stacks. We were doing the whole chant thing or whatever. And then Danny and I started shipping up, and then I ran a big hand into a big hand, whatever. But Danny went on to win it. So we were rooting for the shorties, and he got theirs. I think that's like his 3rd or 4th win. Like, he's having a nice run at this deal too. So, all right, John.
Yeah, I know it's definitely more than his first.
Yeah,
I recognize the name. Yep.
Good player, great dude. He's always out there chatting and building community with everybody too. So I just love it.
He knows how to use that short stack like we were talking about. Get in there. Start making some aggressive 3-bets. Danny, way to go. He also has a really fun avatar icon on his PokerStars thing. That's a good one.
Nice. Chris, how about you?
So yeah, we're going to be wrapping up May pretty shortly. This Wednesday, May 27th at 8 p.m., we're going to have our Strat Chat, our monthly member conversation about the topic. I'm going to be bringing some, we can answer questions, do some Q&A, but I'm going to be bringing some hands from the kind of somewhat famous World Series of Poker final table from 2010, which has a lot of interesting ICM implications. A lot of what we were talking about from May. So if we don't have any big questions or other topics that members want to talk about, we'll be talking through some of those hands. So that should be pretty interesting. And then we're gearing up for June, which will be all about 3-betting, and July will be all about bluffing. So we've got a couple of great topics coming up in the next few months too.
So it's sort of the month of John Somsky, 3-betting and bluffing.
Yeah, indeed.
Awesome, Chris. Thanks so much. We're really looking forward to it a lot. Andrew, how about you?
Wednesday before the Strat Chat at 6:30 p.m. Central, so Wednesday, May 27th, we're going to be doing Learning with Partners again. So this week's content is going to be Learn Pro Poker and PokerCoaching.com. So we're going to be showing some premium content from those two content providers for us. If you didn't catch the last one, we did a Solve for Why and Red Chip. That was earlier in this month, but that is up on the membership website now. But if you would like, go ahead and check out rec.poker/resources. Solve for Why is now $9.99 a month.
What?
Yeah, that's cool.
Insane.
It's insane value.
So myself,
Yes.
they put some really high level stuff out there.
It's unbelievable
yes,
what they put out.
It is some amazing stuff out there. Yeah, so go ahead and check that out. That's rec.poker/resources.
Awesome. Thanks, Andrew. Thanks for all your work on that, for sure. Rob?
Yeah, we've got the book study coming up.
Yes.
2 or 3 weeks, I guess. We're going to do the game plan by Matt Matros. Awesome book. I finished it a couple days ago.
Well, that didn't take you very long, Rob. Good Lord, you do like to read.
Well, I read through it. I still have to go back and redo it again because there's so much there. It's a very cool book because of the way it's structured. It's structured as a step-by-step. This is how you approach a tournament. And it takes you from the beginning right to the end, right? And it tells you step-by-step what you should do. And he breaks it down by using rules, right? So there's rule 1, rule 2, and I think it goes to like rule 35 or something like that. So by the time, you can't memorize all those rules the first read through. So I'm gonna have to go back through again. But I'm looking forward to going through that with the group. I think there's so much content for some of the newer players that it can give a structure as to how you can approach a tournament and actually be somewhat successful. I was using it yesterday while I was playing online. I was using a lot of those rules, just verbatim playing those rules, which is a little bit different than my normal strategy. And I found it was working a little better than my normal strategy. So yeah, I think I think people are going to enjoy it.
That's awesome.
June 17th, by the way.
June 17th is a kickoff?
June 17th, yep.
Yeah, and if you guys want to join, if you're a member at Rec.Poker, you can join us. The links are all going to be out in the membership area. If you're not, go become a member, get the free trial, jump in there, and take advantage of this deal. And if you want a copy of the book, you can just get it at Amazon, or if you send us $15, we'll send you a PDF from Matt Matro. So it saves a few bucks that way if you want to do that. So get in touch with Rob or myself if you have any questions on that. But yeah, Rob, thanks for doing that, man. I'm excited to learn from that book. And we've had Matt on the show, fantastic guest, and it sounds like we'll be able to get him involved doing a Q&A at the end of it too. So it's more than just reading the book on your own and kind of doing that. It's it's learning it in the context of community, discussing it, and then bringing whatever questions you have at the end to the expert himself. And so great opportunity. Jim, you got anything for us?
Oh, I mean, I'm just really looking forward to getting into that book club with Rob. I love this level of detail he's going into, and I'm excited for that project. Other than that, the only thing I have to offer is don't do a month of John Somsky without involving a lot of 4-betting, and that's the final word I have to say on that.
Sounds like there's a personal thing there.
Maybe he knows what I'm talking. He knows what he did in the home game the other night. He knows.
I'm a really nice guy. I don't understand. I often give my chips away to everyone else at the table.
Okay, yeah. Hey, here we are. We're about a half hour into the tournament. Let's go see who the chip leaders are. Oh, look, Poker Geek MN is in the top 3. Oh, I'm so shocked. Unbelievable. Good night. All right.
Yeah, but I redistribute those chips quite often.
You do on occasion. I don't really see my fair share, I don't think. Oh my gosh, it's fun. Oh, I love playing that home game. It's so much fun. Well, one thing I want to bring up, just last time we talked about this, the play and hang. We did that for the first time last week, and oh my God, it was so much fun. So we were able to have a few of the folks that have played with us in the home game before. So Kian Tavakoli, he actually won it. Keto Man, well done. Even though I had to look back, like, who won that thing? We were so busy talking to Moneymaker, and I had chips with like 3 left, and all of a sudden I didn't have chips. And I'm like, what happened? I don't really know. Hey, Chris, we're just kind of hanging out. So we're just hanging out, talking, and then Kian actually went on and won the tournament. But Chad McVean, JB Bird, Mark Wittig, Colin Anderson, Mike Patrick, Kelly Stork, and I had the honor of just playing the game. But then we were hanging out, and Maria Ho comes on, chats with us for a while. Lexi Gavin comes on, Chris Moneymaker comes on, and we just had a hoot. I mean, it was something. So Moneymaker's like in his bed, hiding from his family and his dogs, I forget who it was. One of them, I think it was Kelly Stork's like, "Are you in your bed?" It was so funny. And then he's like, "Yeah." He was just kind of hanging out, just a regular dude. And then he's like trying to figure out how he can change his background. Eventually, he got it changed to like it was the universe, like stars or whatever. So we didn't have to talk to Chris Moneymaker while he's hanging out in his bed. So. But he's just a regular dude, and it was really fun to talk with him. And we're trying to get him on the podcast for a full interview, but I had a good time with him. So what we're going to do is we're going to keep doing these at least every month. But I just had a blast doing it. I think what we'll do for June is I think we're just going to do a random drawing for the folks that have played in the PokerStars home game. Just because there's a barrier to entry. I don't want to have to walk everybody through how to get signed up in PokerStars and all that sort of thing. So it's another incentive for you to play the home game. If you've played, if we have your information, we'll just do a random drawing there among folks, and we'll invite another 7 people in to play in June. And then I think after that, we'll decide how we do it, whether it's through that or through the membership or whatever. But that's the plan for June. So play in the home game. You'll be automatically entered. We'll avoid redundancy. So the folks that played in May, we're not going to have them play in June. We'll probably be a once a year sort of opportunity because it was that cool. And so we'll start lining up more pros. But I don't remember whoever had that idea, but it was super fun to do. I just really enjoyed it. So I feel like I'm pretty lucky. I think maybe we should rotate that through with this panel, the folks that get to play with those guys, because I feel like I'd be spoiled if I'm always the one that gets to talk to those guys. So we'll involve you guys too. But good time. So anything else for the good of the order, guys? Anything else that we missed? Anything else we need to make sure Rec Poker Nation knows about? Give me a thumbs up if you are good to go. Good to go. All right, John. Hey, I saw your thumb. Very nice. Well done. Well, we will sign out there. Thanks again to the panel: Andrew Feist, Chris Jones, Jim Reed, John Somsky, and the great Rob Washam with the Bourbon Time shirt. Going ham. But thanks for jumping in here, guys. And thanks for running Aces Racetrack Casino and Hotel, website AMP, Learn Pro Poker. We'll chat with you next week, guys. Take care.